Now, are you ever looking for a really fun way to decorate your cakes? Well, in this week's video tutorial, I'm showing you how you can add a watercolor effect onto the side of your cakes. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the watercolor paint to use on the side of my cake. Now, first of all, I've got some gel colors. Now, all gel colors are concentrated food colorings, and I've got the water-based gel colors by Color Splash. Now, you can use any gel colors. For this, you just want to make sure they're water-based. Now, because food gels are quite concentrated, the color can be quite deep because they are meant to be mixed in with buttercream or with fondant. So as they mix in with the white and disperse through the fondant, for example, they become a lot lighter. So if you want more pastel shades, then you can also use some white edible paint. Now, in order to make these quite watery, to create that watercolor effect, I'm actually using dipping solution. Now, dipping solution is the same as Rejuvenator Spirit if you use this. And all dipping solution is a food grade ethanol. So it's got 96% alcohol. This means as you paint it onto your cake, the alcohol is going to evaporate and it's going to dry super quickly. I've then got some fluffy paint brushes and just a paint tray to mix my color. Okay, so when creating our watercolor paint, the first thing you want to do is just add a small amount of gel color, and I'm going to add quite a lot of dipping solution. Now, one thing that you want to make sure that you do when you create watercolor paint is you want to make sure that you've mixed that gel color completely through and all of that gel color is dissolved. If it hasn't dissolved, what will happen is when you paint it onto your cake, you'll get little flecks of color, and this is just concentrated food gel. Now, as you can see, this is the raspberry Color Splash, and it's quite dark. So if you did want to lighten it up, you just want to add in a few drops of white food coloring, and you can see that it starts to lighten. And the more diluted that paint, more of a watercolor effect you're gonna get. Now, I've created some little plaques just so we can compare the effect that we're gonna get. So if I take some of that mixture on my fluffy brush, just so you can see the watercolor effect. And to this we can add some darker pink, building up that color, just as you would with watercolor. Now, with dipping solution, it tends to dry super quickly. So you can see the lighter pink has already dried to the touch. So this is the effect that we're gonna get on our cake with dipping solution. Now, for this video, I'm gonna be using dipping solution, but I have been testing out different things that you could use to create a watercolor effect. And I wanna show you the reason why I think the dipping solution is the best. So the first thing that I'm going to compare it to is vodka. I know a lot of people tend to use alcohol to create edible paints, but I just want to show you the difference. I'm going to be using the Absolute vodka. So this has an alcohol content of 40%. So I'm going to do exactly the same, just creating two different shades. So for this first one, I've just added some of that white food gel. And again, just on the darker one, just mixing that through, just making sure all of that food gel has dissolved. Okay, so I'm starting with the light one, just as I did on the previous version, and I'm just gonna go over the top. Now, one thing that I have noticed every time that I've tried it with vodka is it's not as smooth as with the dipping solution. So you do tend to see brush marks. I do find that the dipping solution just works so much better, and you really get that watercolor effect. Whereas with vodka, you just see the brush marks. Now, the last thing I want to show you is water. Now, when I first started thinking about creating a watercolor cake, I thought I could just mix water with the water-based gel colors and it will give me a watercolor effect. But I want to show you why I prefer the dipping solution over water. So just as before, I've cleaned off any of that vodka off of my fluffy brush. So I'm going to start with the lighter color and just apply this over that disc. Now, just like when using the vodka with the water, I actually found this to be the worst. You just get so many brush marks and you just can't get rid of them even if you add more water over the top. With the dipping solution, this one has been left for around 5 minutes and you can see that it's already completely dry and we have this really smooth texture just like with watercolor. And you can see the difference where you've blended the lighter color with the darker color. If we compare this with the vodka, it's still super wet. You can also see lots of brush marks, and even though we added in that white, there isn't the distinction between the lighter shades and the darker shades. This is also very similar to the water. All you can see is brush marks, and you really don't get that watercolor effect. Now, when I was testing out different things to use, I actually left these overnight to dry, and I found that with the vodka, this took a few hours to dry. With the water, this did eventually dry, but it did take around 24 hours. Now, I really just wanted to show you the different effects that you can get. Maybe if you don't have dipping solution and you thought that you could use vodka instead, just so you can see the difference before you add it onto your cake. So if you do want to create this watercolor effect, then I really would suggest using dipping solution with your gel colors to create your watercolor paint, or if you've got rejuvenator spirit, this will work exactly the same. Now for the cake, all I've done is created a 2-tier dummy cake and just covered this in white fondant. So for the dummy cake that I've created, the tier at the bottom, I've got a 7-inch dummy cake, and this one just measures 5 inches in height, and then I've got a 5-inch dummy cake on top of this, and this one is also 5 inches in height. So for the colors, I'm going to create a variety of different shades. So I'm going to have a lighter version and a darker version of each. So I'm going to have some pink, some purple, or this one is the violet. I've got the jade, and also a little bit of blue. So I'm going to start with pink at the bottom and just work my way through the shades. I'm then going to go through and just fill up my paint tray with that dipping solution, just making sure all of that gel colour has dissolved. Okay, so once we've got all of our watercolour paints, I can then add them onto the cake. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the cake, and I want the pink to go into purple, then go into that jade colour and finish off blue at the top. So I'm going to start with the lighter pink. So just taking some of that on that big fluffy brush. I'm not too worried about it on the board for the moment. I can clean that up. I can then go in with some of the darker pink. I've then got a wash of that lighter purple. I'm just letting that drip through the darker pink. So I'm coming over onto the top of my cake. Now, one of the great things about using the dipping solution is it does start to dry really quickly. So I can go in just over the top, just adding some darker shades so that we get the difference between the light going into the dark. And just like with watercolor, if you're adding the paint and you're finding it's a bit dry and you want it to run a little bit more down the cake, then just add some more dipping solution. Now for this cake, I've created quite an abstract design, so all those colors are blending together, but you could also use this same technique to create really delicate designs, just going in and using it as you would a watercolor paint. Now I'm absolutely loving how this is looking. I'm just doing one panel on the side of the cake, but you could go around the entire cake to make it really fun. Now to finish this off, I want to add some splatters of paint. So I'm going to take a smaller brush, take some of my paint, and I'm just going to tap the paintbrush against my finger, and I'll just do the same with some of that jade colour. So just getting quite a lot of wet paint on the brush and just knocking it towards the cake. Now in order to clean the board, I'm just going to take some kitchen paper and just add some rejuvenator spirit. And I'm just using one of the masonite boards. So this one is a matte board, so it means that I can just wipe off any excess. But if you are adding it onto a fondant covered board, then I would add it on once you've added your paint. So here we have the finished 2-tier cake with this really fun watercolor effect, going from pink through to purple. Then we've got the jade and the blue on the top tier. I really love this effect, and there is so many possibilities with what you can do with it. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will be able to use this technique on your own cakes. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this and you haven't already, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cake Spellings YouTube channel. So until next time, bye!